So if you followed our road trip out to California, you know I got into a little bit of a fender bender and it caused an issue with a wheel. Now, fortunately, I was able to get a new wheel, but I did have to drive very slow because that wheel was busted and I wasn't able to hold air, of course. Oh, don't you just love Hondas? Always a freaking Honda every time. Unfortunately for me, my biggest issue right now is this wheel. This really highlighted something that I always kind of dismissed all this time of Tesla ownership. These cars don't come with a spare tire, and I carry around an air pump with me that I got at a Harbor Freight for emergencies, but that's it. I don't have a spare tire. I don't have slime or repair kits or anything like that. And I've been lucky to date. However, in Tucson, Arizona, that luck came to an end, and it brought this whole thing back up front and center. And people ask me all the time, do I have a spare tire? And the answer has always been no. So after that, I've decided it's time to have a backup plan, especially if I'm gonna go on a solo road trip and space isn't really an issue. So I have a spare tire now. And this spare tire does have its limitations like all spare tires do, but it does give you peace of mind for those of you who do not like going without having a spare tire in. So I'll only have this in the car in situations where I'm traveling alone, but I do want to share this with you because I've got a bit of an issue with this tire right here. As you can see these grease pen marks right here, I have a hole in the sidewall and it's really a big bummer. But every day I have to put air in here, and over the course of about 10 hours, this thing will be completely flat. So it's not great, and it's really dangerous to drive on a car that has that big of an issue because this thing could explode at speed. So I'm gonna put the spare wheel on there since I now have it, fortunately, and I'm gonna use that until the replacement tires come because these tires are not in stock anywhere locally. So here's the spare wheel from Evannex, and what's nice about this one is it is made specifically for the Model Y. Now, when you do go to order this spare tire kit, you do have the option to upgrade to include a roadside spare tire toolkit, and this will come with a scissor jack and a lug wrench, and I believe maybe even a glove. But it's something to consider. It's like $90 additional to add that, and that would be kind of nice because if you are on the road, you're not going to be carrying this jack around with you. So maybe consider the extra 90 bucks to keep that in the car with you as well. Of course, it is narrow like most, and that is to help conserve space. There's nowhere to put this where you can hide it. You actually have to use the sub trunk to store this, and I'll show you what that looks like in the back of the car. But this tire, I do need to take this whole wheel off, and we're gonna be rocking this bad boy for a period of time until I believe Wednesday. So about 5 days from now, my tires will be here and the installers will be here to swap this tire out. So let's take a look at how this looks in the back of the car. So that's what it looks like in the back of the Y, and you can still use the third row if you have a 7-passenger Model Y. It also fits in the back of a Model 3 in the same kind of way that it sits here. You have to take that lid off, which you can see just sitting right up here. So that's how you would travel with this thing. It won't fit in the front, so this is really the best spot for it. Or if you don't use all the space in the back, you can certainly put it on top of the floor in the back, which I'll do now to show you what that looks like. So now if it's not too dirty, hasn't been used yet, you can actually store it like this. I'm sure there's something you can wrap this up in to keep it clean, but you can set it up kind of like this. And let's see if we can get it more at an angle. So perhaps if you had some bungee straps, you could hold this in place like this if you wanted it to sit like that. Now, of course, you can also just lay it down in the back and it'll sit there. It's pretty heavy. It's a solid wheel, which is good. So you can have it sit in the back like this, or again, you can just put it in the sub trunk like I had it a moment ago. Now the spare tire does come with its own lug nuts, and it has a special tool as well, which I'll show you now. So you can see that the way that these lug nuts are set up, they have a special pattern in them, and that's a theft deterrent. But this is the tool that you'll use. Looks like it's probably a 17 millimeter or so. We'll find out when I get my tools out, but it's got all 5 lug nuts and this special tool. Of course, you can't do any work on a Tesla without having a puck. And yes, Evannex does make these pucks, and I have had these since our first Model Y. Whether you do your own work or not, it is a really, really good idea to have these I keep them in the car just in case I'm on the road and something needs to be done in a shop that's not familiar with working on a Tesla. You're really going to want to make sure that you have these pucks with you, because you can't just lift this car as they would a traditional car. These pucks do need to go into those access points in all four corners to make sure that you safely lift this car. And then finally, you do need a low profile jack to be able to fit this under there with the puck on top of it. So basically stick this puck in the hole first and then slide that into place. That is the best way to do this. I'll show you that now. All right, so here we are to stick this puck in here, and right about here is that access hole that you're gonna stick this puck into, and you can feel it right there. And because of the way that these pucks are made, it just sticks into place. So you can see it sitting there by itself. Some of them have a bigger gasket in them that's separate. This seems to work just fine. And then you can fit your low profile jack right underneath it. So that's why you need the low profile jack, to be able to make that gap. All right, now let's pull this cap off. All right, so there's our lug nuts. They are 21 millimeter. All right, and I don't have a breaker bar easily accessible, but I do have an air ratchet that I will not be hooking up to air. Completely defeats the purpose, but it will work. All right, and then just like that, you're back in high school. You've got an orange wheel on the back of the car. Of course, I'm only kidding, but it is good because my wife doesn't really care much about if a wheel is good or bad. It's a good visual reminder, and of course, it's got the listing on the side of its maximum speed to safely travel with this. So this is gonna get us through for a few days until those new wheels arrive. I hope that this video was helpful, and for those of you who worry about us all the time not having a spare tire, well, I've got a spare tire now, so you can rest at ease. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, of course, give it the thumbs up. If you haven't already, of course, subscribe to the channel as we continue to post content regularly. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Bearded Tesla. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.